I'm a wedding photographer, and my last 3 clients have said there's something odd in their photos. Weird. This is really, really weird. I just answered an email from my 3rd client this month saying there is something in their photos that's really freaking them out. About 2 weeks ago, I got an email from my first client asking if I could remove the dog from their photos. There wasn't a dog at their wedding, but there is one lurking in the background of several of their photos. Since I edit all of my weddings, I don't recall a dog in their pictures at all. Their wedding was located in a pretty rustic place, and the owner does have a couple of large dogs. Maybe one hung out for the night. The couple and I are pretty certain that's what it is. I reopened the pictures, and sure enough, there it is. I was a large black dog in the background of a few ceremony shots and quite a few groups. It's too far away to tell what kind of dog it is, but you can definitely see it's a dog. It's pretty easy to get the dog out of the pictures. I sent the couple their photos and they're happy with them. Moving on is not a big deal. Then it happened again last week. Same complaint. I don't recall a dog in their photos, but I opened them back up. And there it is. A large black dog is lurking just outside the reception area. You can see its features pretty clearly in the photo. It's sitting comfortably, not moving from the spot. It's in any of the images. Its black fur is sleek and clean. Its ears are at attention, and its eyes, their piercing eyes, are staring right into the camera. In every single photo, the dog is not as easy to get out of the images. I sent the couple the images I had finished, but I did have to trash 1 or 2. Not so fun, but what else can you do? I sent off another wedding album today and almost instantly got an email from my client. Who brought the dog and why is it in my photos? I open the photos and there they are. It's in the ceremony shots, the dinner, the dances. It's over her shoulder. It's pressed up against the groom's leg. This time it's looking vicious. Its ears are back. The hair on its neck is up. Its teeth are bared in a snarl, and its eyes are staring right into the camera. The dog was not in the edited photos when I loaded them. I pulled open the raw files and it's there. I still had the images on their SD card. I loaded them into my camera and the dog is there. There is literally no way I can get this dog out of these photos. I'm going to have to refund these clients. I can't expect them to have and treasure these, but I also can't shake the feeling that the dog is seeming to get closer and more aggressive. The more aggressive, the more I shoot these weddings. The first wedding, it was just there checking things out, observing the situation. The next, it takes an interest in my camera and what I'm doing. And in the third, it's looking aggressive. I have a wedding tomorrow. I can't shake this feeling that something is going to go tremendously wrong. Wish me luck. Up days, there's no way I'm canceling on this client. She's a COVID bride who's already rescheduled once. But I did reach out to a colleague of mine, a Catholic priest, Father Francis, who officiates over weddings outside the church. I explained what was going on to him, and he asked to see me and bring the photos. He has spent a number of years in South and Central America and has witnessed some crazy things. I'm pretty positive he can help me. Plenty of people have noted the similarity between this and Stephen King's Sundog. I had not heard of that story or read anything about it until today. Most of the books I read are about business and photography, maybe a self-help book on occasion. Rarely fiction and almost never horror. I need a copy of that book. I'm alive. Photos are queued on the computer, ready to be edited. I haven't looked at them just yet, and I'm a little afraid to.
This is a true story about something I experienced a long time ago and still bothers me today. In 1988, a friend and I were staying in an extremely small one-bedroom house for a week in the middle of the Allegheny Mountains. The closest neighbor was almost 5 mic away. There was nothing around but country. Late one night, we were up listening to music and heard a dog scratching at the door. It was a small, friendly Jack Russell, so we let it in and gave it some food and water. We were sitting in the living room when the dog ran past into the bedroom, then slowly backed out of the bedroom, growling and snarling with the fur on his back standing straight up. We both stood up, grabbed our jackets, and walked out of the house. We stood outside the front door calling for the dog, but the dog wouldn't come. so we shut the door and walked away from the house to calm down because it freaked us out a little. We kept our eyes on the front door. There was no back door, and the house was easy to see because the porch light was the only light around for miles. It was dead quiet. We didn't hear anything. We couldn't even hear the dog anymore. After about 30 minutes, we went back into the house, and the dog was gone. We never seen it again. For a few days, we tried to figure out how the dog could have gotten out of the house or what could have spooked it so bad that night, but we never did. The dog couldn't have gotten out without someone letting it out. We didn't see anyone come out, and as far as we could tell, there was no one around for miles. We didn't see another person or a car drive past the entire time we stayed there. Me and the friend that was there that day are still friends today. Every now and again we bring it up and try to explain it in a way that makes sense, but we never can.
My dog is scaring me. My ex didn't really like dogs. So after we broke up, the first thing I did was get it a dog and do all the other things he didn't approve of. Jake was a black lab mix with a white patch on his chest, probably 50 or so pounds. I found him at our local adoption event. You donate whatever you can and they choose a pet for you. If you like the pet, you can accept the adoption match. The event was focused on animals that were on a kill list, and multiple shelters in the area were participating. So I went to the adoption event, and a woman named Angela introduced herself to me. She said she had been fostering Jake, and he was within the age range and size I was looking for. He's 2 years old. He's been returned to the shelter because the family moved out of state and left him alone. She tells me that it was through no fault of his own, because he was an amazing dog. Angela mentioned that he was a single pet kind of pet. She asked me if I wanted to take him on a walk, and she handed me his leash, and I hooked him up. I put his leash on him, and he just stared at me. I pulled the leash just slightly and asked him if he wanted to go for a walk, and he got up and walked to the door, kind of ignoring me but being pretty obedient. Angela looked at me from the window while I walked. I didn't really feel a connection to him. He was aloof and never looked at me unless I wasn't looking. I told her that I liked him but would keep looking. I handed her back Jake, and she genuinely looked upset. I kept walking around the event and even volunteered to help put some of the dogs away into the vans to go home, hopefully to live another day. It was getting late and already dark when I made my way back to my car, and there was Angela with Jake. She was having a cigarette leaning against a car talking to someone. It sounded like arguing. As I approached, she looked up at me. "Please take him. I can't keep him. He needs a good home." She pleaded with me, clearly desperate. I didn't know why, but I said yes, and before I knew it, she was handing me the leash and walking quickly away towards the street. The first few nights were fine. He slept under the bed, and I didn't really see him much. He seemed like he needed some time to readjust to being a pet. I didn't know how to connect with him. I'd throw him a toy, and he wouldn't come. I'd pour food out for him, and he wouldn't come out for it, but in the morning, it would be gone. I'm a pretty sound sleeper, but the sound of clawing under the bed a few days later woke me up out of a dead sleep. I jolted out of bed, afraid. I was sweating and my heart was racing. I remembered I have Jake, and I call for him. He doesn't come out, no surprise. I call for him again, and I hear him clawing the floor and pulling himself out slowly from under the bed, his eyes wide and human-like. I patted the bed beside me, and he looked at the bed for a second, then sank back down and crawled back under the bed, ignoring me further. I only saw him for a second, and the room was pretty dark, but he looked somehow larger and more menacing. I must have been seeing things I thought. I had a hard time falling asleep. I wake up around 5 in the morning a few days later and go to my office across the hall and start to work. The way the desk is set up, if the door is opened all the way and the bedroom door is also open, you can see under the bed a little bit. As the sun starts to rise, I notice a dark object on the floor. I can't tell what it is. Maybe the blanket fell off the bed, but as the sun rises, the shape becomes more familiar. It's Jake with his dark eyes fixed on me from under the bed. He grins at me. His teeth look sharp, and he's drooling. I closed and locked the office door, not knowing what to do or what the hell was under the bed. He looked so normal most of the time. I called the shelter that hosted the event and tell them about Angela, who said she was from a shelter out west, but the woman on the phone wasn't really listening. And she had never heard of anyone named Angela from any shelters out west. She asked me to leave my name and number, and she'd check the list again to make sure. I kicked myself for installing the doggy door. It was so odd to hear the flapping of the door randomly as Jake came and went only when I wasn't around. I'm going to let him out, call animal control, and tell them that I found this random dog. He's not chipped. I didn't sign anything. Angela kind of just gave him to me. I was racked with guilt, so upset about how much I wanted a dog. And now I'm thinking of doing this, but I don't know what he was. But he wasn't just a dog. I unlock the door, and I can hear Jake in the bedroom. The door is somehow closed. I sit in my office all night, waiting for Jake to try to get in. He wouldn't go outside after that. It's like he knew of my plan and didn't want to give me an opportunity to call animal control. There were moments where he was a dog and other times he was something else. This dog-like creature, moving in a way animals just don't. I snuck out of the house once I heard the door flap and drove as fast as I could to a hotel, where I cried and screamed on the way. I was finally free, out from under the watchful eye of my goddamn shelter devil dog. I got a 15th floor room with a balcony and a view of the ocean. As soon as I got into the room, I checked under the bed, the closet, the bathroom, and everywhere else for Jake. For the first time in almost 2 months, I slept soundly. I woke up and that feeling of dread and fear that had been bubbling like a bad dinner in my... I stayed there for 3 days until my credit card bled. I went back home and the first thing I noticed was that my front door was wide open. I wasn't sure if I should go in, but I did. And the thickness in the air is gone. The house seemed brighter and felt better. I looked around everywhere in the house. And when I was convinced he was truly gone, I sat on my couch and cried in relief. My first thought after that was that fucking doggy door. And I ran to the garage, grabbed some wood 2x4s, screwed 5-inch screws into the door frame, called a handyman, and scheduled someone to come over and replace the door. It had been almost 3 months since Jake left. And I've stopped seeing him sitting in the corner of the room at night. And I stopped hearing those clawing and dragging sounds under the bed when it's late and I'm almost asleep. That is until last week when I looked out my bedroom window because I heard an obnoxious, repetitive knocking sound outside that was driving me crazy. I figured it was a woodpecker. We had so many of them in the woods behind my house, and if they land nearby, I can hear them from any of the rooms on that side of the house. The sun had gone down and it was almost dark outside. Out of the corner of my eye, I see something moving in the trees and a flash of red with black around. I focus my eyes and Jake grins at me, showing big white teeth. He looks straight at me with the same no expression about 15 feet up in the trees behind my house. I close the blinds, grab my gun from the safe, and put it out on my nightstand. I keep hearing the knocking, and I lock the door and pull the covers around me. I don't know how I'm ever going to sleep again. I'm writing this from my mom's house. She only lives 20 or so minutes away from me, and I've been hearing sounds at night here too.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more scary stories.